refer to the regulations regarding discussion and comments that is posted next to the sign-in sheet. I have one person signed up, and that's Mr. Kolar.
Good evening, everyone. At the last meeting, it had been argued that field trips should be fun. That is certainly the word we like to use in school, in the classroom. But that word fun should be anchored within the context of educational goals and with the best educational environment as stated in the board policy for 2030. Now, medieval times is a fun place. Numerous occasional reviews attest to fun factors with families and friends who have gone there for all kinds of celebrations. But no one mentions, no one even hints that this is the best educational environment or how well this integrates or enriches classroom instruction. It is fun and entertaining place. This board has developed policies to help define the educational field trips. It goes something like this in 4521. Such trips should be integrated into the curriculum, not merely recreational, are an educationally sound and important part of the program and supplement and or enrich classroom instruction by providing learning experiences. This policy also aligns with the Education Commission reform, stating that field trips need to be integral, not incidental, part of the curriculum and have educational value. Tonight, you are being asked to approve such field trips to medieval times with a technical performance described in the motion as an immersive experience for students to further engage their learning about feudal Western Europe and the conflict that developed throughout this time. But as I have seen, this is not the case. I can tell you from firsthand experience as an educator based on my visits to this venue that this is not an educational environment. Students are immersed, but into a crowded lobby with some medieval decor and gift shops. Students are then moved into a stadium, seated, served a lunch, and immersed into an environment of colorful lights, booming music, and announcers are working up the crowd to a frenzy for the favorite night. Actors play battling knights while students eat and scream for their favorite knight to conquer the others. At the end of the victor is declared. The lights come on, and the students head for the buses. There are no docents, no guided tours, or opportunity to, quote, further engage their learning about feudal Western Europe and the conflict that developed throughout this time. Students leave with lunch in their stomachs, some ringing in their ears, and maybe some souvenirs. All of that convinced me and several of my middle school colleagues to ditch the scream and eat experience and look elsewhere for that immersive experience to engage student learning. Such a place was found at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, the Met, where we spent the day immersed not only in their arms and armor exhibit of the medieval times, but that of the near and far east. Docents took groups of students from one exhibit and gallery to another to immerse the students into the many social, personal, and daily aspects of the monarchs, knights, and peasants. Their life, equipment, roles, responsibilities in feudal Europe, the Middle and Far East were revealed in the examination of the many artifacts found in the galleries. The museum aligned all of this with the standards of New York State. This trip was repeated for many years to follow and resulted with the students recreating the medieval experience by taking on the many roles of royalty, knights, and feudal peasants and trades with their own outdoor festival, complete with costumes, food, dance, music, and stage plays, depicting this period for the entire school community. I understand there are internal doubts about the educational value of this trip. And I now ask the board to vote no and to hold to your policy of standards defining field trips, being the best educational environment, integrated into the curriculum, educationally sound, and an important part of the program supplementing and enriching classroom instruction. Simply sitting in a stadium, consuming a lunch and shouting for one's favorite night is fun. Fun for the families, fun for friends, but does not meet the standards of educational quality this board and the commissioner have defined as such. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to address the board on agenda items? If not, I'm going to change things around. We're going to go to public comments on non-agenda items. We are now at the portion of the agenda for public discussion on non-agenda items. Please refer to the procedure sheet next to the sign-in sheet. And I do have one person signed up, and that's Stacy Moran.
Good evening. My name is Stacy Moran, and I am the president of the Newburgh Teachers Association. I am here tonight to address the impact of your voting down the supplemental memorandum of agreement regarding the additional duties assigned by the case manager manual to the secondary special education teachers of our district on November 26, 2019. This agreement was bargained in good faith over the last year in order to ensure that our teachers have the time they need to support our most vulnerable students. I am asking that you revisit your decision as it is harmful to the children of Newburgh and unsupportive to their teachers who strive every day to give each and every child what they need to be successful. The case manager manual transfers the work of others to the secondary special education teachers who already work hard in and out of their classrooms. The manual states that in addition to all of the tasks they already do as special education teachers on a daily basis, they will now also be doing the work previously done by school counselors, general education teachers, ICT teachers for other core subject areas, attendance teachers, administrators, and the CSE chairpersons. The manual was created on the false premise that case managers exist in education law. The term case manager does not appear in any New York State Commissioner regulation, and as a result, it also does not exist in any Newburgh and Lawrence City School District Board of Education policy. The manual was created by an administrator. If the district feels that this new position is important, then the time necessary to complete the new work should have been allocated from the start. But no such modification in teacher schedules have been made since the manual was rolled out last year. By asking the secondary special education teachers be given the time necessary to perform these extra tasks, I am asking you to respect them as professionals whose work is important and truly affects the lives of the children we all serve. Contrary to what you may have heard, the new responsibilities are time-consuming. One of the new duties assigned to the teachers is to check their student schedules against their IEPs and have all of the scheduling problems fixed within 1 week. No special educator is going to simply send an email if a child's schedule does not address their academic needs, and then sit back and hope the problem gets fixed. First, after familiarizing themselves with the newly assigned students' needs and the ways in which their particular school schedules will accommodate them, they will have discussions with all of the students' teachers. Then they will contact the students' counselors to have more discussions about the schedules and the changes that are needed, and if the modifications are even possible for that quarter. Finally, to ensure that the children's needs are met, the teachers will do an immense amount of follow-up. To assign this new task and say that they do not need to have extra time because this task takes mere seconds is a disservice to the special education teachers and their students. This is just one example of the additional work contained in the case manager manual. The list of added tasks also includes progress monitoring, identifying root causes and constructing intervention plans for all core subjects, checking academic standing, credits, region exams results, and the CTE pathways, planning transitions and conducting career planning assessments, examining attendance and putting strategies in place, as well as inputting changes and finalizing the IEP. Special education teachers want, as all educators do, to help their students fulfill their potential. I am asking you, as a member of the Newburgh and Lawrence City School District Board of Education, to revisit whatever reasons you voted against granting the special education teachers the time they need to assist their students. Do what is best for the children. by making sure that the teachers can fulfill these new tasks, and so that they can make sure that our exceptional learners get all they need to cross Academy Field. Thank you very much.
Would anybody else like to address the board on non-agenda items?
Board of Education, I just want to quickly note that we're fully aware of the concerns and had a meeting already scheduled for tomorrow to continue to try to resolve this matter.
Anybody else like to address the board on non-agenda items? We're going to move on then. We're going to move on to our superintendent of schools, Dr. Padilla.
I got a couple items for this evening. I'm going to start with a recognition for 3.1. If I can have our Director of Fine and Performing Arts, there she is, Ms. Keisha, if you can come up to the microphone.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Linda Keach. I'm the Director of Fine and Performing Arts here at Newburgh. Thank you so much for once again giving us the opportunity to recognize one of our amazing performing arts scholars. This is quite an honor, and I have some information that will help to illustrate what an honor this really was. So each year in late August, approximately 900 students are notified that they're selected to participate in the NYSSMA Conference All-State Music Groups. The All-State experience begins with a music educator, is over a student, and an accompanist spending countless hours preparing a NYSSMA Level 6 solo. Last spring, over 6,500 sophomores and juniors from across the state of New York prepared for All-State evaluations in the hope of being selected. Every student who earns a score of 98 to 100 must be recommended. This year, over 2,400 students received scores of 98 or higher and were recommended for All-State consideration. The All-State Selection Committee reviews in no specific priority member school music teacher recommendations, adjudicator recommendations, the candidate's previous NYSSMA solo ratings, grading school, zone representation, participation in the previous year's All-State, and participation in other performing organizations. After the master proficiency list has been established, and the voice parts are delegated, the process continues with each successful candidate assigned to positions in one of the 8 All-State performing ensembles. In late August, all selected students and alternates are notified by mail, which is when we learn of Sam's acceptance into the mixed choir. So Sam Sukai is a senior at NFA Maine who participates in many extracurricular activities. He rows for the varsity crew team, sings an a cappella mixed chorus, Madrigal Select Chorus, and Robert D. Williams Tenor Bass Chorus. He's also a supporting lead in the spring production of In the Heights. Sam has been accepted into high school All-County, NYSSMA Zone 9 Area All-State, and Conference All-State this past year. His future plans include pre-med studies at NYU, Fordham, or Brooklyn College. The Level 6 Tenor 1 solo he sang last year was entitled Do Not Go My Love by Richard Hageman. Thank you so much to Sam for all of his hard work in striving for this amazing accomplishment. Thank you also to Ms. Cassie for all of her efforts in assisting Sam in his goal. Please join me in congratulating and honoring NFA Maine's Sam Sukai for achieving the amazing distinction of participating in the 2019 NYSSMA Conference All-State Mixed Choir in Rochester this past December.
Congratulations again to you and your family and your phenomenal teachers. Madam President, if I could just ask, before I continue with my section, just for a moment of silence from the Board of Education, senior staff, and our audience this evening. As many of you may be aware, we've had really difficult time the past few days learning that a student who attended the Newburgh School District for several years that recently registered in Wallkill in September, and some adults were fatally killed on Sunday. And 9 families, or 9 individuals in a helicopter crash in LA on Sunday. If you could join me in a moment of silence and praying and thinking about the friends and family and loved ones of these individuals. Thank you. So this evening I have several presentations as a matter of a mid-year update to keep the Board of Education abreast of some critical happenings in the district. So I'm going to combine 3.2, 3, and 4 together. And at the end of each, I'll stop for questions and comments. So I just won't go through 3 presentations without giving the board an opportunity to reflect and ask questions and comments. So for over a year now, we have been studying and trying to learn what's happening across the country as it relates to school districts moving their start times back. And why is this phenomenon picking up speed? I think it's pretty obvious that these aren't just my opinions, but there are some very reputable organizations, that of the government, higher education, and others, really committed to understanding why is it that young people, in this case adolescent children, how their brains work, and when their brains work better as they're still in school. And so you can see here by the bulleted list the number of organizations that have produced some extremely good research around why it's advantageous for school districts to get really serious about moving their start times back. So we called this research, and here's some key factors that require our attention. And they're both health and public risk. I'm just going to highlight a few of these because you have them in front of you. What we're learning through the research is that adolescent children, based on their body's chemistry, we happen to think it might be by choice, but it's actually based on science, that they can't go to sleep until much later in the evening. That's a common conversation that folks are having. Well, is it a choice that a child decides to go to bed at 11 or 11:30? Well, yes, we can, but it's much harder, especially if you're an adolescent. So by doing this research, we learned that adolescent children, based off of not getting enough sleep and mood regulations, the amount of car accidents adolescent children are experiencing are higher than a particular age range. There's supporting research that shows that children who go to school later have better test scores and graduate on time. And when they have enough sleep, they're able to regulate themselves much better. Now, when I started to think about that last one a little bit more, I said, well, I'm not quite sure that just applies to adolescent children. I think there are many adults who don't get enough sleep, have a difficult time regulating their mood. What's not listed on here that is profound in the research is also that an adolescent child's brain functions the best late morning, as opposed to younger children. So what I'd like to share with you is just another draft of where our team is at in trying to figure out how we can go about moving the start times back. Now, I need to preface, this is a multi-year strategy. I ask for your consideration to move forward in this research to see if it's even feasible. I will tell you that there are pros and cons to our current system. Make no mistake about it. Our current structure benefits some and not others. Any proposal that I submit to you will be the same. there'll definitely be pros and cons. There is no silver bullet to bell times and making it work for everyone, every day, every year. What I'm trying to figure out is how do we do something for September while giving us enough time to put an RFP out on the street, get some experts in here to figure out how we can possibly, and I need to underscore possibly, move all schools to an 8 o'clock or later start time. As you can imagine, with the amount of routes that we have, transporting as many children as we have, that is no easy feat that can be accomplished in a matter of months. So we really do need to bring in an expert and help us to figure out how to make that happen, what the cost consequences are to that, and ultimately engage in a real serious conversation around the kind of investments, which we constantly do, to prioritize the kind of investments that would impact many, many students. So let's just take a look at a couple of all three tiers. And again, I need to preface that this is merely a draft worthy of conversation. All right, so tier 1. As of now, we are looking at a possible tier 1 that would include elementary schools. Now, informally, we have been polling parents and simply asking them, those that have young children, what time their children generally are up. And overwhelmingly right now, and again, it's just informal, we're finding that younger children happen to be up much earlier anyway. And so we are thinking and considering that perhaps a new tier 1 should consider our elementary schools. Tier 2 would include our secondary schools, right around that 8 o'clock start time. So as you can see here, we have the true middle 6-8s and all 3 high school campuses. Tier 3 would include our K-8s and Horizons. Now you may wonder, well, how come Horizons isn't part of the first tier like the other elementaries? And part of our discussion and trying to figure out, there's actually some good reason why we should try to keep Horizons on the 3rd tier. One is financial. We can't get enough buses on tier 1. We use our buses multiple tiers because it's a cost savings. We can use them 3 different times as opposed to once. You're going to pay for the bus, you might as well get the most use out of it. So that's one significant factor. The second factor is Horizons happens to be the one school, not the only school, but the one school that has a significant amount of walkers. And so as you can imagine, when it's really, really dark outside early in the morning, with children who generally walk to school, it would be advantageous to keep them on a 3rd tier. This is something that we're considering. We still got work to do. But I do believe it helps us move in the right direction of getting adolescent children to have a later start time. We're able, if we move forward with this, we're able to make this work with just 2 to 3 additional buses. That's it. So at this point, Madam President, I'll open up the floor for conversation.
Board members, questions? Go ahead, Mrs. Santiago.
Thank you. Have you talked to students about this? Again, my only concern is for those kids that need to work after school. I understand the basis, but you're trying to look at the whole picture. So that's my big concern, because I know we have a lot of students that do work. How would this affect them?
Yeah, we sat down with students last year. We have not done it this year. We are coordinating focus groups as we speak to be able to present something to them. When we did sit down with some students last year, specifically at the high school, they were requesting a much later start time. So we'll circle back to that because we think that's significant input that we should continue to gather.
Board members, any other questions? Yes, Mrs. Burton.
Dr. Padilla, have you thought about the implication for after-school programming?
Yes, we have. So while we believe there are many pros to potentially moving in this direction, one of the drawbacks would be modified sports, specifically at the K-8s. So that is something that we're right now working with the athletic director. He has analyzed some schedules based off of this year to see how we would still have a modified season. Essentially, and this is our tentative, they would have a 4:30 start time. So it's a matter of trying to figure out how to make that work with other school districts. But I would say to you, as much as I love sports, and again, something has to give in order to make something work, and if that's modified sports, I think we're okay.
Go ahead, Mrs. Burton.
So after school is more than modified sports.
It is.
We have after-school programs at most of the schools. And some kids are already getting home, 6, 7 o'clock. So pushing everything forward could potentially have them coming home much later. So I'm curious about your thoughts about that.
Yeah, so actually by doing this actually opens up more opportunities, because one of the biggest concerns that we heard from some of you and others was that elementary school students were getting out much, much later. By moving them to the first tier, they're able to actually take advantage of more after-school opportunities. And I think, high school students, middle school students getting out at 3, that's very ideal. Obviously we still have the tier 3 schools getting out at the time that they would. Part of what we will need to figure out is how to open up morning opportunities for those specific schools, which is still part of our exploration. So I don't have an answer for that just yet. Ideally, and if it's something we can afford, it would be we would love to see some morning programs for those later schools.
Any other questions? Dr. Henderson.
Yeah, I just have a comment, not so much a question, but as a parent who does have a 3rd grader who attends Bombville right now, in that she's already getting up at 6 a.m. in order to make a bus that picks her up at my parents' on Lakeside Road to get to class by 9:05. Moving her start time to 7:20 would be very difficult, very, very difficult. For younger kids, there's things that need to be coordinated that I don't think really need to be coordinated when you're 14, 15, 16 years old. I definitely think it's a consideration in that there's definitely going to be a price to pay for those younger kids. It's definitely going to be considered.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that, and we'll continue to explore.
Any other questions?
So, as part of that research and exploration, we do hope to bring to you hopefully next month, fingers crossed, whether it's this proposal with some more answers around some of the questions and challenges that students and families could face. So to be continued. Next, I just want to quickly go over a couple things that have been reported on. I'm not sure how many of you had a chance to see the governor's state of the state, but this particular image captures some overview priorities for the state. We've also provided you in your folders much more detailed information as it relates to these key priorities. I also need to preface that this is not final. This was simply a proposal. It's not even his final proposal. And once it's finalized, it still has to go to the House and the Senate, and then they'll get their hands on it and massage it until it gets approved. So what is a particular concern at this point is that it's now becoming a little later. So every week that we wait for a final proposal that then goes to the House and the Senate is much later time that school districts have to actually get solid numbers to know how to go about planning for the next year. The last several years have been really good. He released his state of the state, 8 runs were produced, Senate and House were able to massage it and get it to a final budget. The longer this takes, the harder it becomes for school districts. And if you recall, maybe 5 years ago, we were waiting as far as like March to try to come up with a budget, which only lends itself to a lot of frustration as we try to make sense of what we have in order to plan for the upcoming school year. But as you can see here, some of his proposals speak to an increase in foundation aid. I'll touch on that in a second. More money allocated to the pre-K. I'm glad to report that we have a vibrant pre-K program now for quite some time. And districts who are new to this can come and learn from us. Allocating money to schools to become community hubs has been a common priority over the last several years, and so we'll see what comes of that this year. Just a couple of quick notes as it relates to foundation aid. One growing contention across the state year after year is that there is a formula in place to fund school districts, yet the state does not fully fund the formula. And that greatly impacts districts like ours. We require heavily on foundation aid. And we have been to Albany to advocate. We have testified in court about the lack of funding that the district receives. And we will continue to advocate on behalf of our staff and our students. So we are still owed millions and millions of dollars. And so we'll wait to see, given that this was part of his address, if in fact more of it will be allocated to schools. In terms of allocation from year to year, right now we're trending at a 3%, which equates to a little more than $2 million. We're anticipating on getting the same status quo state aid run. What we're noticing as a concern, however, is that the governor this year is proposing putting all of, or most of the aid into one sort of bucket. And this is going to make it hard for other legislators to get in and really make sense of how much money is being allocated in which category for districts. So what we're seeing is a reduction in expense-based aid, which greatly impacts districts like Newburgh. We are a non-component district. We are able to maximize expense-based aids because we put up the money and then get it back later. And we're able to allocate and operate our own programs where other districts can't. If there's a reduction in that, in those school aids, we can anticipate that we will get less aid than anticipated, and that will make for closing a balanced budget in April much, much harder.
Board members' questions?
So this is to be continued. As we continue to get information, we'll make you available of it. I'll tell you that my team and I have been aggressively working through our current numbers. And I'll just note today, I'll have a formal presentation in February as it relates to a declining enrollment and what that means in terms of future aid runs to the district and how we're essentially going to have to put forward some long-term strategies that are very worrisome, but we have to prepare for a future based on current numbers that we have. So again, that's a presentation I'll make in February. The last presentation that I'll be making this evening is an update on strategic planning. So I do have a number of slides here. I'm not going to go in great detail with each, but simply to give the Board of Education a quick update as to where we are. So we've been analyzing, we're in our last year of Vision 2020. We are simultaneously closing out one strategic plan while designing the next 5 years. It's exciting work, but it's a lot. And so we are looking at the key priorities that we need to have in place over the next 5 years to continue to make the progress we strive for. In a nutshell, these are the different phases and the corresponding time frame throughout the year. We have a project team in place, we have a design team in place, and in the next few months, we'll be reaching out to advisory teams in order to get a nice sampling of stakeholder input. So you can see here, pre-working plan, design, launch, and then this summer, we'll be implementing and then monitoring over the course of next year. And that'll be a common pattern, that last one, for the next 5 years. And we'll be providing the Board of Education updates accordingly. We've been looking at Journey of a Graduate. This is something new. We didn't have this in Vision 2020. And this is looking at what are the skills and knowledge that our scholars should have upon crossing academy field and going off into the world. And so that's something that we'll be sharing with you later on in the year once we get it to a finalized state. And these are just some examples from other districts. This is a visual that the design team found very helpful, that you might as well, when it comes to trying to understand the strategic direction of our current plan. So we have our vision and mission, our very robust vision and mission. We have various core beliefs. We have pillars that highlight what the key priorities were over the last 5 years, and then under the pillars were focus areas. And then what's not included in here under the focus areas were quality indicators. So we are making a decision right now about the structure of the plan so that way it's easily understandable by everyone in our community. So here's a new structure. We'll have the journey of the graduate sitting right at the top with our vision and mission, followed by our values and beliefs, followed by the key pillars, and this is something that the design team is currently working on right now. Are these still the right priorities moving on for the next 5 years? Where might we want to make some tweaks? Focus areas under each pillar. And then what will be different for this particular plan will be outcomes associated with each of the pillars. So I'll just quickly share with you some of the work that recently took place at our last design meeting. This is one group. This is another group. As you can see, teams are looking at the pillars, wording of the pillars, and then various corresponding focus areas. Right now, we're titling the next strategic plan as Beyond 2020. And again, it will be journey of graduate, mission, vision, core values, pillars, focus areas, and then outcomes. So here we are tonight. Our project team and design team will continue to massage what the journey of the graduate profile will look like. We'll start to streamline some of the work that the design team recently did around particular focus areas, and then hope to by March, April, meet with advisory teams. And they include people like realtors, teachers, students, parents, faith-based community, the business community, and others. With the hope that we would have a strategic plan to present to you in May or June. This is some work from our advisory team. In this upcoming weekly, I'll be providing you an executive summary of this work. So you'll understand tonight's kind of just a quick glance at what's been taking place. You'll have detailed information on Friday.
Board members, questions or comments?
Mr. Glasgow here? I think he is currently helping to supervise one of the games, but I will quickly run through his presentation. Sorry. All right, so we should note that we continue to experience a lot of success with our scholar athletes. As you know, these are students who compete at a high level and are expected to produce in the classroom. And so as you can see here, all 9 of our fall NFA varsity teams were named and honored as scholar athlete teams. No easy feat, but also reflects the go back standard that we've been trying to, each year trying to raise. So 101 out of the 202 students achieved a 90% or higher. You can see here each of the different teams and what their corresponding GPAs were. For girls varsity, you have individual students And usually in the spring, what we do is we actually invite all the students and all the coaches to come in and be recognized. So tonight is just a quick overview of how much progress our students are making. We got honors for swimming, boys varsity, soccer. I think it ends there. So when you see a student who happens to be an athlete, as you can see, they're doing extremely well. Be sure to congratulate them. Be sure to motivate them to continue. When you see some of our students who are involved in the fine and performing arts that get to compete at the highest levels and represent our district both locally and at the state level, be sure to acknowledge them and congratulate them. Madam President, that concludes my items for this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Padilla. We're going to move on to our board committees, personnel, and buildings and grounds. Ms. Prakash.
Yes, we met last week, 2 short meetings. On the Personnel Committee, the things that are on tonight's agenda, including curriculum writing for the CTE program, Schedule J appointments, my brother keepers appointments, and night school appointments. On the building and grounds, we discussed the need for a couple of the elementary schools for playground equipment, which we are moving forward with. School usage. We also talked about the maintenance work around the district and the site visits that the committee is going on to the schools. I think we've done 2, and the third one is scheduled for this week. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to move on to my section, resolution to adopt board policies on second reading. That's 5711, contest for people, 5712, athletic awards, 5830.1, red flag law. In addition, we're removing the following: 5450, athletic awards, 5880, performances by musical organizations before community groups, and 9714, contests for pupils. These are going to be removed, those last few. I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
So,
Questions or discussion? Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Ms. Burton? Dr. Henderson?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Ms. Maida?
Yes.
Ms. Mineo?
Yes.
Ms. Prokop?
yes.
Ms. Santiago?
Yes.
Mr. Stritter?
Yes.
We're going to move on to our Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum Elementary, Mrs. Moriarty.
Thank you, Madam President. Elementary Curriculum Instruction presents item 6.1 for your consideration.
I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
So,
Questions or discussion? Roll call.
Dr. Henderson?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Ms. Maida?
Yes.
Ms. Mineo?
Yes.
Ms. Prokop?
yes.
Ms. Santiago?
Yes.
Mr. Stritter?
Yes.
Ms. Burton?
Thank you, Madam President. That concludes my items.
Thank you, Mrs. Moriarty. We're going to move on to our Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum Secondary, Dr. Spindler.
Thank you, Madam President. Curriculum and instruction at the secondary level presents one item for consideration this evening. 7.1, the resolution to approve the field trip for class.
I'd like to entertain a motion, please. Questions or discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Ms. Maida?
Yes.
Ms. Mineo?
Yes.
Ms. Prokop?
Yes.
Ms. Santiago?
Yes.
Mr. Stritter?
Yes.
Ms. Burton?
Yes.
Dr. Henderson?
Yes.
That concludes my items for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Spindler. We're going to move on to our Assistant Superintendent of Exceptional Learners. Sitting in his place is Mr. Ford.
Thank you, Madam President. This evening we have one item, resolution to approve CSE and CPSE recommendations.
I'd like to entertain a motion, please. Questions or discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Maida?
Yes.
Ms. Mineo?
Yes.
Ms. Prokop?
Yes.
Ms. Santiago?
Yes.
Mr. Stritter?
Yes.
Ms. Burton?
Yes.
Dr. Henderson?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Thank you, Madam President. That concludes our items.
Thank you, Mr. Forgic. We're going to move on to our Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources, Mr. McLemore.
Thank you, Madam President. On the Human Resources agenda, have items 9.1 through 9.11 for your consideration.
Would any member like to separate out any item? Yes, ma'am?
Yes, I'd like to separate out A1. A,
9.1A. Any others? Okay, so we're going to do everything except for 9.1A. I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
so moved.
Questions or discussion on those other items? Roll call on everything but 9.1A.
Ms. Mineo?
Yes.
Ms. Prokop?
Yes.
Ms. Santiago?
Yes.
Mr. Strittmatter?
Yes.
Ms. Burton?
Yes.
Dr. Henderson?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Ms. Maida?
Okay, let's look at 9.1A. I'd like to entertain a motion, please. Questions or discussion?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to table A1,
9.1A.
9.1A.
Okay, roll call. Wait, I have to have a second.
That's correct.
Okay, can I have a second on the tabling, please? Thank you. Now can I have a roll call?
Ms. Prokop?
Yes.
Ms. Santiago?
Yes.
Mr. Strittmatter?
No.
Ms. Burton? Dr. Henderson?
Abstain.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Ms. Maida? Ms. Mineo?
Yes. Okay, so,
That concludes my items, Madam President. Thank you.
thank you, Mr. McLemore. We're going to move on to our clerk of the board, Mr. McCoy.
Thank you, Madam President. I have the approval of the minutes from the January 14th, 2020 meeting.
I'd like to entertain a motion, please. Questions or discussion? Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Ms. Santiago?
Yes.
Mr. Strittmatter?
Yes.
Ms. Burton? Dr. Henderson?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Ms. Maida? Ms. Mineo?
Yes.
Ms. Prokop?
Yes.
That concludes my items, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy. I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting, please. Nobody wants to go home? Thank you. Roll call.
Mr. Strittmatter? Yes. Ms. Burton? Dr. Henderson? Mr. Howard? Ms. Maida? Ms. Mineo? Ms. Prokop? Ms. Santiago?
Thank you all. See you in a week.